Welcome to Defacto Review, our weekly in-depth analysis on the current news and affairs with our commentator and economist, Mr. Jargal Defacto.
Good evening.
And I'm your host, Nabsred. You can join in on our conversation on MNB World Facebook page and on Twitter with hashtag Jargal_Defacto. Now onto our topics for today. Total of 19 clauses and 36 articles were amended. The municipality of Ulaanbaatar is trying a new method of school bus system to reduce traffic jam. Did the Mongolian government ever approve the budget without deficit? Now let's get into our first topic. The constitutional amendment draft was adopted by the parliament at 6:02 p.m. on 14th of November 2019 when 63 members who are present unanimously approved it during the regular session. So our first question about this one is what kind of new amendments are being added related to the independence of judiciary system?
Before go to the judiciary system, very brief about what kind of amendments are made.
Right.
Our constitution has 70 articles, in which 19 articles and 36 provisions were amended. That's why it is not new constitution, it's amended constitutions. Now we still to go through presidential veto and the decision of the Constitutional Court, if those will happen. There is a less probability that those things will happen. And as you said, the Constitution will be valid from May 25th, 12 hours in 2020. Before to judge the constitutions or give evaluation what happened with the constitutions, we would like to see that from 4 points of view. One, whether these changes make the parliamentarian democracy stronger or not weaker. Second, what is changing with the executive power. Third, judiciary power. The fourth is the local administration. So once we talked about this judicial system, you asked, let's talk about what kind of changes happened in the judicial system, by the way, which is the most critical point for Mongolian democracy at the moment, where the people find we need serious reform in judicial branch of the power. Two things. One, they have changed a bit structure. Before we had the court at the level of city, IMAG, and SUM and district and in between SUMs. But now we have a more broader, in the US system it's called circuit court. So that in a district, if it's very small, then now it's a bigger circuit court where the court system can work. The second thing is the General Counsel of Court. There are some changes happened. Now, General Counsel of Court has 10 members. 5 of them will be elected from lawyers. Another 5 will be open. The lawyers judges can put their names and they will be selected. And the head of this council will be elected among these 10 members. And the rule of procedure of this council will be defined by separate law. There's one addition, which is about 49.6 new addition. It was on the 49.5. Now a new addition, which says the Judge Disciplinary Committee, which is the organ to keep responsibility with the judges, where if they have any mistakes, violations, but the way how it works will be also separate law. In general, there will be some 30 laws changed as a result of this new constitution's amendment.
So, were there any amendments about strengthening the parliamentary system, parliamentary democracy system?
I think that's the main strength of these amendments, which were long awaited. But at least the Parliament will discuss, Parliament will have a sessions not like 50 working days as today's per session for fall sessions or autumn sessions. Instead of 50, they will have 75. And the majority of all issues will be decided by 2/3 of the majority, which means 2/3 of the parliament members. Majority means they're more than 50% of the parliament members. Votes will be open, and there will be a possibility to call back if the parliament member is connected with criminal cases. There will be self-dispensing of the parliament. There is a new law which gives a little bit more clear conditions than before. And also 2/3 of the parliament decided that they should be dispensed, then there will be so. And also another thing is prime minister nomination. It used to be within 45 days. The next one is if the parliament is dismissed, then the current one is to announce within 10 days new parliament election, and within 60 days to organize it. And until the new members come, the current parliament will be in the force. There are different approach to the executive power. There, the prime minister position have way strengthened. Instead of prime minister only. By the way, before that, if today 18 ministers are all parliament members, the next one will be only 4 plus parliament. Prime minister can be a parliament member. The remaining are not to be parliament member. In that way, we are releasing the double daily issues. Well, not completely, but one step forward. Now the parliament prime minister will have a full right to nominate, dismiss all cabinet members, which is substantially new changes. Another change to strengthening our parliamentarian democracy is the permanent committees in the parliament may create, permanent committees, they can create a temporary committee of the parliament, kind of inquiry in the UK parliament, a system where on the issues that of major concern of the public, they can create this kind of the inspection temporary committee of the parliament, and that should include the minority in the parliament members. Next one is on the strengthening democracy would be the referendum. A referendum can be organized as before, but on the issue of sovereignty and territorial integrity, there will be no referendum at all. Another thing is minimum amount of members of a political party is to be 20,000 or 1% of the voting electorate, but that provision will be valid from 2028. So it gives 2-3 election chances for smaller parties to have more members. And most importantly, the whole bottleneck of our democracy was the transparency of the financing of political parties, political campaign. But first time in the constitution of the country, it is specifically specified that political parties are to be transparent, their property and revenues, expenses are to be publicly available, the information. So, and also this will be the base for financing of political parties by the state. That's the major things happened in this constitution.
So, well, could you tell us about the amendments related to the natural resources and economy?
Yes, and there is a particular new provision about how natural resources are to be kind of result of natural resources use come to the people. It says that first of all this the land other than people owns the base of the land, the forest, water resources, animals. Before it was only state property. Now it's called state and public property. More confusing name, but it is by the way how it is to be used. Before it, when it was just state-owned, state property, then the state people, the government people think that it is they can do anything with all the property. Now it is they are restricting their use. It is also to be public property. Also, there is a substantial change which says that state policy on the use of natural resources to be long-term and is to be based on the long-term development policy of the country and the wealth coming from these resources to be used, centralized in the sovereign national wealth fund and directed to the just consumption of the people. The other thing was very interesting here was about the strategic deposits. The value of strategic deposits of the country, if you take from the beginning to the end, majority of the wealth is to belong to public. That's the major new provisions about mining resource of the country.
So, does this new amendment bring the results we want, for example, especially in the judiciary system?
Yeah, more or less we talked about that. Not completely what we wanted, but now judiciary system is independent from the president, more or less.
What I mean was that cases were being closed because of the time limit. What about that one?
What is that?
The cases, especially the cases related to the corruption, they were, no more valid because of the time limit.
Well, this is regulation by separate law. It is not particularly specified in the new amendments, but that's the major concern during the discussions of the amendments to the constitutions.
Okay, so what's interesting about this one is that the constitutional amendment team only consisted of lawyers. So what about the other experts of other sectors, such as maybe economists, anthropologists, or sociologists? What about them?
Well, this working group of the Constitution amendments worked hard, mostly consisting of lawyers, of course. Of course, they could have more economists, anthropologists, other professionals. But however, the team made a wonderful job. We should congratulate this team. Of course, this issue of, for example, the property issue, which is the basis of the economy, it was not very clear saying that it is state public property. That is very blurry definition of the property, and it may cause down the road many discussions in the country. Of course, it's much better to have all type of professionals of the other work, all professionals of the work, of different work, to be in this kind of group, of important group that makes important decisions. However, I want to say also another thing. Now, Ulaanbaatar, other than Ulaanbaatar, there will be Erdenet, Tarkhan will have a back. They will return their city status, which is very important. And also at this level, capital city, other cities, and IMAX will have a right to have own economic decisions and the right to have own taxes. That give them opportunity to, say, issue own bonds for needed projects. And this is a new development in the country.
So could you tell us about this, the city independent system of taxes? Because can they maybe, cooperate with international organizations and put their own law and tax?
Yeah, that gives this new provision which says that now IMAG, capital city, Sum district, within the limits provided by the law, they can manage property and set on tax rate. That provision gives an opportunity, kind of more or less economic freedom for local people, which kind of first step of decentralizing of the economics and budget, financial opportunities in the country.
So do you think that this will, affect positively on our economy?
Necessarily, it of course depends on the capacity, but if they will, under this provision, increase tax, the people will not like it. It is mostly to be an issue of sharing the current taxes instead of increasing new taxes.
Okay, thank you for that. Now, let's get into our second topic. A new school bus system with 29 routes to the isolated districts of Ulaanbaatar city, such as Bayonghosho, Dazanbodl, and Bointohua, will carry 2 to 5th grade children of 27 schools. So our first question about this one was, what is the significance of this new school bus system project initiated by the municipality?
We talk about 1.2 million people participating in traffic movement in the town, in the city of 1.6 million, which is half of the country. And every day around 500,000 cars on this traffic, on the road, which they makes traffic a lot congestions. And this new project of the city carrying around 3,000 students of the primary school is welcomed so much by the people. And of course it is 3,000 people, students movement, it's about 3,000 cars or less almost. So it's quite welcomed and the people, parents support it.
So does Mongolia have the budget to keep up this project?
According to the city council, it is about 40 buses, drivers, salary and gas altogether for 22 working days, about 30 million tugriks. If it is 30 million tugriks, then if per every child they pay 10,000 tugrik per month, which is substantial lower cost than they would carry otherwise by their cars on child. So people are very supportive, and I think even demanding now this is not to cover the primary schools, also secondary schools, which will make further, I think, the traffic jam less. And also it's a question of quality, the equal distribution of quality of primary and secondary schools in the city. Because from very periphery of the city, people bring their child to the schools with better quality of education. So it is not only an issue of making economy of parents' time to be used for private and the state work, private or own work, but it's also an issue of education quality. So it's a very multidimensional issue, which is a very good start.
So there was an incident about government officials using state cars to bring their children to school. But we do not have any laws to punish such offense. So what should you do about this, and what does other countries maybe do if they use state property for their own?
First of all, I think these bureaucrats now will not bring probably their child by the state car, service car, which is unethical. First of all, the car is not for his child, it's for him or her. So that's a growing ethical issue, and I think the whole things now, the city even made order that if city officials use state cars for on private services, they will be fired. Maybe it's extreme, but however, it is a good signal to be morally, ethically correct for state officials, good signal to the people. And I think it's very much on time. Let them use the special bus for children.
Okay, so let's get into our third topic. Law dictates that the constitution must be approved before 15th of November. And according to this law...
You mean budget?
Yeah, the budget law. So according to this law, budget of 2020 was approved this week, and it had a deficit of 2 trillion togruks. So our first question about this one is, what is the budget of 2020 mainly focused on? Is there any new policies to expand our economy?
Well, budget, yes. But 2020 budget is, of course, it's election budget. Everybody is trying to make more budget piece to their own constituency, which is reflected in constructing so many schools, hospitals, small kind of size of hospitals, clinics in zones at the different level. Yeah, it is of course a budget, election budget. The estimation was the economy is growing at 6% for next 3 years, and budget deficit is going down 3 times according to this current year planning or forecast. Total income of budget is about 11.8 billion. Trillion Tugriks, which is 29% of GDP. The expenses is 34% GDP with a deficit of 2.7, which is 5%, 5.1% of the GDP. That means the Mongolian economy is going to be at the level of 40 trillion MNT, and which is around 15 billion US dollar according to the current exchange rate. Economy is growing, however, inflation is growing as well, 8%. About this budget nature, of course, still we always find the expenses of budget is always high. In more than that, it is more higher than it is income. Income, 80%, 82% of budget income is consisting of the taxes, tax revenue. 8% is from non-tax revenue. So 90% is coming tax and non-tax revenue. And where does it go? 20% for salary, 30% for care, social care and services, etc. No, 20% for salary, 30% for social care, including the cover of the deficit of the social insurance system. And a question comes, tax is increasing, see up to that level, 80% level, 82% level. In general, they are increasing in Mongolia the social insurance taxes, which is giving a hard time for private sector. And yet the government state is missing, for example, 200 plus social care insurance money they have lost because they have kept it in their bankrupt one commercial bank. So they are using so irresponsibly our budget, our tax money, and yet they are keep increasing taxes. That tendency is still reflected in this year budget, and private sector is not happy. So that's in short the nature of the Mongolian budget state budget for 2020.
So there's a deficit of 2 trillion Tugriks. How will they compensate for this? Where will this money come from?
And it may be even more because this change in the royalty in mining law. So that's a big concern because still if they don't issue a bond, then they need to borrow more money. And hopefully this budget is under quite scrupulous watch of IMF, which is providing certain program in Mongolia.
So we are supposed to start paying our loans from next year. Is there any?
From 2021, we start to pay large sum for our large foreign debt. And of course, this finance minister, which will be changed next year, which I don't think they will be very much is concerned about the budget of next year after them.
So did Mongolia ever approve a budget without any deficit?
Never. They always wanted to have, but never it is done. Now, by the way, the deficit compared with 2016, where it was almost 19%, 9.19, now it is about 5%, which keeps going down. But however, we should watch the way how they use our money.
The Minister of Finance said that 1.3 trillion Tugriks will miss its targets because of the decision of the Constitutional Court. So what happened to this problem? Well,
yeah, Constitutional Court found that the royalty, mining royalty, cannot be collected two times, when it is at the raw, then protest, etc. So they have annulled the amendments about the next part, but they deleted all provisions of royalty, which brought big confusion to the economy of the mining companies. And it is an issue to discuss a lot, I think. If it is it is, then of course the budget will have another hole for 1.3 billion, 1.3
3 trillion.
Trillion turiks, which usually comes from royalty to the economy. So I think this issue is open, and there will be many more and more discussions down the road. And in particular, after this, the constitutional court had a problem in Korea. He come back, and it will continue more and more interesting events to be happening.
So is it normal to have this much deficit compared to other countries?
Well, it depends on what is your foreign debt, what is your inflation case, what is your balance deficit is with what kind of nature. If it is balance deficit, one thing, etc. So it depends on the how vibrant is the economy. Mongolian economy is still dependent on commodities, only three products. As you see, the 80% of the tax revenue is coming from taxes, and almost a third of them is coming from the commodity, depending on mining royalty and other taxes, which depends on the commodity prices. So our economy is not yet competitive, and we have not yet diversified our economy to the level we want to replace the mining revenues. We need to now develop more agriculture products to be sold on the international market, and also IT, which we believe that Mongolia can produce more values in this information technology industry. So all this, if happens, if all this diversification of economy is empowered by the income from mining sector, then the economy will be a different situation, and then I think hopefully the budget will be better. And but the most missing point is we don't have the system of checking the efficiency of the state investment, in particular school and hospitals, etc., because the prices are so different, uncomparable in countryside and in the city, and depending on who is the parliament member, the prices are a lot different. So Mongolia needs independent auditing system, professional auditing, and also financial auditing for every state state budget investment projects. Then we will have, I think, less hole in the budget.
Okay, so could you tell us a little bit about the demand of International Monetary Fund and the programs they are trying to implement in Mongolia?
Well, this program is just partially implemented, and it is pending because Mongolia is to now take a measure about the increase of all equity capital of several commercial banks, which the independent auditing firm found that was not according to banking rules, and the state is now in limbo sitting, and there are many corruption cases unsolved. That's why we are on the gray list. So I think IMF will watch on that, and hopefully without this coming out gray list, and without having these corrupt people having responsibility, certain punishment, and most importantly giving back our public money, the country economy will not move properly ahead as we wanted.
Okay, so thank you for that. Unfortunately, that is all the time we had for today. Thank you for staying with us. We will see you next week with more topics. Have a nice evening.
From tomorrow, we'll have all these amendments more or less in English in English on our website, jargaldefacto.com. And I know so far all these important constitutional amendments were not completely in English, and we tried to cover some of them for this.